I would like to discuss with you vocal attack. Or actually, I prefer to use the term vocal onset, because attack sounds a bit violent to me, and I'm not a violent man. What is vocal onset? It's the way the sound starts. Generally, traditionally, 3 types of onset are known or talked about. One is a glottal onset. Another is an aspirate onset. And there's also a simultaneous onset, so I'm going to go through them and demonstrate them to you. This is the so-called glottal onset. I, e, a, o, u. I, e, a, o, u. Here is the so-called aspirate onset. Hi, he, ha, ho, hu. Hi, he, ha, ho, hu. And here is a simultaneous onset. I, e, a, o, u. I, e, a, o, u. Now, the glottal I might call tense. I'll tell you why in a moment. The aspirate I might call slack or lazy. And the simultaneous I'm going to call clean. Here's my description of what happens. With the glottal onset, the vocal folds are closed. The air pressure builds up, and then the start of the note is from the release of the vocal folds. So they're closed, pressure builds up. So the release there creates the flow of the air, and the vibration starts. The aspirate onset, the chords are open, the air starts to flow, the chords come in and start to vibrate on the flowing air. So there's a little bit of that air on the front. Hi, he, ha, ho, hu. So if you like, I'm going to call that slack. Things are a little bit slack and they pick up as the folds come into play. Simultaneous is where the vocal folds come together just as the air starts to flow. So I call that clean because there's nothing on the front. I, e, a, o, u. Let me go through all of them one more time then. The glottal, I, e, a, o, u. Aspirate, hi, he, ha, ho, hu. Simultaneous, I, e, a, o, u. What are the pros and cons? Well, traditionally the simultaneous is considered nice. I think the Belcantonians favoured that. They thought it's elegant. And it's possibly the least stressful. Glottal, pros and cons. Well, the cons, to start with, that can be quite disturbing to the larynx. You do it a lot and do it with a lot of closure, force, tension. Some might think it sounds ugly. Some other disadvantages I've spotted are that tension never really goes. So you have that tension to begin with, then they start to vibrate, and do keep a little bit of that tension in there. That's what I've noticed tends to be the case. Maybe that's a problem, maybe not. Advantages. Some would say there aren't any advantages, but I've noticed something. Whether you call it advantage, it's a function of it, if you like, in that when you're going for a high note or a note where you need the air to be moving very quickly, it's somehow easier to just take the air in, slam this shut, and then release this. And as you release it, with the pressure of air underneath it, you've suddenly got the air moving really quickly. Let me see if I can demonstrate that. I'm going to turn away from the mic because it's going to be loud. There may be some distortion. I don't know. I'll sort it out in post, but it might not be as clean as one would like. But I'll turn around and try to demonstrate. So if I want for a highish note and I need the air to be moving quickly, I could simply do this. Ha, ah, ha, ah, and just release it. If I don't use this, it means I have to get the airspeed from the muscles. Ah, ah. Notice nothing on the front, but you can't see because it's zoomed in too far, but the muscles have to go from nothing to sending the air through. I love it. But if you're not practiced or strong enough, not going to happen. If you get tired, not going to happen. It's easier. Ha! Just the hook is on this and then poof. Might be the false folds. I'm not sure of the physiology. I have a suspicion the false folds are involved as well. I'll talk about that in a minute. So, with the glottal, yeah, it's got that function. Some people find if you want to have a bit of a harder sound in your voice anyway, then that may be keeping a little bit of that in there. You have to experiment and play with yourself. Traditionally, they consider it ugly. Yeah, ugly. Aspirate, pros and cons. Cons, I think you get that breathy sound at the beginning, if that's a con for you. Continually doing it under high pressure means that air is escaping all the time, and it can irritate the vocal folds. You're doing a lot of it with a lot of coming through. Any pros? Well, only if you like it. If you want that kind of a sound, or you want to use it occasionally, mix it in. I think I do, without thinking really. Simultaneous. Pros and cons. No cons as such. And the pros, sounds nice if you like that kind of thing. It's clean. Least stressful probably on this. So really what I think you'd probably find yourself doing is mixing them all. I do use a glottal, I've noticed. I've noticed if I want maximum, I'm talking maximum, then I'll breathe in. My muscles are ready and they're fit. And then I might notice close this as well. And I also notice my chest will be involved. You know, they say breathe from down here. I can do another video on that. It's like, you know what, you've got to know what you're doing, or you don't. Just do what you do. But I have spotted myself using everything. Abdominal breath, little bit of the chest comes up. Maybe this will close as well. And by the time the chest comes down, the abdominal muscles fire and this opens. Poof! Gives the maximum my body can possibly give in terms of acceleration and speed of air. Final thing then. False folds. You can look this up, they're above the actual vocal folds, sometimes called ventricular or vestibular. And they're quite heavy now. I've been playing with these. So I think, check this out. This, I believe, is the actual vocal folds. Quite light. If I have a sense of something a bit higher up closing, I get Can you hear a bit of a growl? I don't know if I can do this. This is a growl on the vocal folds. You hear a bit of that? And this is the false folds. Not sure what to make of that. I noticed myself using them. But what I would say to you for this, about this entire video then really is just go through and get familiar with this instrument. Get familiar with that glottal onset. People tend to lean towards one or the other. A lot of my students, they can only do the one. They're glottal all the time. A lot of them can't do simultaneous. They go from glottal to breathy, aspirate. If you're a glottal person, then I'd say practice the aspirate and then see if you can get simultaneous. If you're more of an aspirate person, which you tend to naturally do put the air on the front, then just experience what the glottal is like. Just get to know this area here, because it's a vitally important area, isn't it? It's where the larynx is. And then maybe look at the false folds. I think also one way of looking at the false folds, if you do lift any weights, you'll notice that you go, now that one, I believe, is the false fold, slamming shut to keep the air in the body so it doesn't collapse when you lift a weight. Yeah, I think explore, get to know, enjoy, see if it's of any use to you. See if you can just make your way through this thing and have fun. And I'll see you next time. Keep well.